Welcome back to another episode of the Criminal Defense and Personal Injury Podcast. I am your host, Frank Walker of Frank Walker Law, and I work with people every single day who are dealing with criminal charges here in Allegheny County and throughout Western Pennsylvania. And the one thing I see over and over and over again is this. Good people get caught in bad situations, and then they make it worse simply because no one explained to them what comes next, step by step. People have no idea whatsoever. So today, I really want to slow this down and walk you through it clearly. Just walk through the process step by step. What actually happens after an arrest and where things can go wrong. That's my goal today. So let's start first with the moment of your arrest. It starts very, very fast. One moment you're having a conversation with your friends, and the next moment you're being placed in handcuffs. At that point, the situation shifts completely. You're no longer just being questioned, you're actually in custody. And this is where people often make their first mistake. They start talking, trying to explain, trying to clear things up, trying to convince the officer that there's been a huge misunderstanding. And what most people don't realize is once you're arrested, the goal isn't to figure out if something happened. No, it's too late for that. The process is already moving forward in a direction you probably don't want it to go. Everything you say at that point can be written down and used against you. It's going to be written down in a report. It's going to be remembered and potentially used later against you. I've seen cases time and time again where a few sentences said under stress, said under duress, become a central part of the prosecution's case. Not because the person meant harm, because they didn't appreciate the moment that they were in. They didn't understand the gravity of that single moment. Now, next, I want to talk about the booking process. After the arrest, you're taken to the station for what's called booking. This part feels procedural, but it's important because at this point, you'll be fingerprinted, you'll be photographed, your background information will be taken. You're probably going to be interviewed by someone from pretrial services. And that interview is going to be very important because that will determine what the judge will look at to determine what your bond may be. You're entered into the system, and depending on the situation, you may be held in a cell temporarily while things are being processed. In Allegheny County, this can vary depending on the charge, the time of day, and the circumstances of the arrest. It also depends where you are within the county. Are you in the city of Pittsburgh, or are you out in the suburbs? Are you in North Hills? Are you in Homestead? Are you in West Mifflin? Are you in Bethel Park? All these things matter, and they are circumstances you need to consider. For some people, this is their first real exposure to the system, and it can feel very disorienting. You're waiting. You have no idea what's going on. You don't know what's coming next. You don't always have clear information. That uncertainty is where anxiety sets in and where people start making decisions that they later regret. Next, I want to talk a little bit about bail and release. The next major step in your process is bail. And this is usually the first question people ask. Am I going home? I get it. I understand that. And I appreciate that question. That's the question everyone has at that point. The answer usually depends on a few factors: the severity of the charge, your prior record, and whether the court believes you're a risk to leave the area or reoffend. In some cases, you may be released on your own recognizance, meaning no money required. In other cases, bail is set and you'll need to post it before being released. Bail is based on two premises. Are you a flight risk? Are you a danger to society? And in most serious situations, you may be held pending trial because they think you are a flight risk or a danger to society. Here's what most people don't realize. Bail isn't about money, it's about positioning. The conditions set here at your bail hearing can impact your ability to work, your ability to travel, your ability to go to classes, your ability to go to school, your ability to interact with some of your friends and communicate with people in your area. All these are conditions that the court can set as a condition of your bail. I've worked with individuals who didn't fully understand their bail conditions and ended up violating them without even realizing it. So this step isn't about just getting out, it's about understanding the terms of your release. The next step is called the preliminary hearing. At the preliminary hearing, two things need to be proven. One, that a crime was committed. Two, you're more likely the person who committed the crime. Credibility is not an issue. And this is the most misunderstood part of the process. A lot of people think, oh, it's just paperwork, it's just the first step. Nothing really happens here. We can't get any charges dismissed or withdrawn right here. That's not true. This is where the court looks at the case and decides, is there really enough evidence to move forward? It's not about guilt or innocence. It's not about credibility. It's about whether or not the case continues and continues to go on to the court of common pleas. Or as most people would say at this point, whether or not it goes up to big court or whether or not it goes down the street. And here's where preparation matters. I've seen situations where people have walked into the hearing unprepared. thinking it was just a formality, nothing was going to happen. But decisions made at this stage could impact the entire case. Let's say, for example, it's a general count of homicide. Well, what's the theory that the Commonwealth is moving forward on? Is it a first degree, second degree, third degree murder? Or is it a voluntary or involuntary manslaughter? What evidence is emphasized by the Commonwealth? How are witnesses going to be handled at the preliminary hearing? How is the case positioning moving forward? Is it going to be aggravated assault or is it going to be a simple assault? Is it going to be a DUI at the highest tier, the middle tier, or the lowest tier? In some cases, this is also the first real opportunity to challenge what's been presented. So while it may seem early, it's not a minor step in the process. It is a major step in the process. So let me give you a story about a prior client. Obviously, I'll leave the names out of it. Let me give you an example of without getting into any more of the specifics. I've had someone coming to me after arrest who assumed things would work themselves out. They talked at the scene, they didn't ask questions about bail, they didn't prepare for the first court appearance, and by the time they realized how serious the situation was, they were already reacting instead of planning. We were still able to help them out. It was much more complicated than it needed to be, and that's the pattern I see most often. People just don't prepare. They don't understand how serious the process is. And a lot of times they just don't want to appreciate because they don't think it's a reality. They don't think this is happening in their life. It's not just the charge, it's what happens after the arrest that creates the problem. But here's the key takeaway I want you to get from this episode. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this. The process moves quickly. In the early stages, what you say, what you do, and what you don't understand can have long-term consequences. This isn't the time to panic. It's about awareness, because when you understand the process, you're in a much better position to handle it. If you know someone, a friend of yours, a family member, or an associate of yours who's dealing with an arrest here in Pittsburgh or anywhere in Western Pennsylvania, the best time to get guidance is early, and not after the case has already started. Even a short conversation can help you understand your position and avoid mistakes that are hard to undo later. You can reach out, ask questions, and get clarity before your first court date, because in situations like this, timing matters. As overwhelming as this process can feel, it really comes down to understanding where you are and what comes next. An arrest isn't the end of the story, but it is the beginning of a process that moves very, very quickly and has real consequences if it's not handled the right way. And the truth is, most people don't get into trouble because they intended to. They get into trouble because they didn't understand how the system works. That's the reality. And that's why conversations like this matter. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at one of the most common situations people in Pittsburgh find themselves in, a DUI charge. We'll walk through what actually happens during a DUI stop, what officers are really looking for, and the mistakes people make that seriously impact their case. Because just like an arrest, what you do in those early moments can make a bigger difference than what you think. Until then, stay informed and take care of yourselves.